Okay, here we will convert equations in polar form to rectangular form. What that means is we'll take an equation that has r and theta from polar form to rectangular form that involves x and y. So our final answer here should only have x and y. So what conversions will we be using? Well, we'll be using the fact that r squared is x squared plus y squared. So every time I see an r squared, I can replace it with x squared plus y squared. And also, every time I see a tangent of theta, I can replace it with y over x, and then I've got y's and x's. I could also replace r cosine theta with x, or r sine theta with y. Okay? So all these convert to rectangular form. So let's try an example. Theta equals pi. Now the only one up here that involves, well, there's a couple that involve theta, but the easiest one is tangent of theta equals y over x. So if I take the tangent of both sides here, I get the tangent of theta equals the tangent of pi. And now the tangent of theta is y over x, and the tangent of pi is 0. So y divided by x equals 0 would be an acceptable rectangular form of this equation. Or if you multiply both sides by x, you'll see that y has to be 0 in fact. And that's maybe a better form of this equation. Okay, here there are a couple things we need to fix. We need to change this r to an r squared so we can make the first conversion up here. And the second thing is we need to make cosine of theta r times the cosine of theta, change it to x. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is to multiply both sides of this equation by r. And so then on the left side you get r squared, and on the right side you could write 2r times the cosine of theta. And so now you can make the replacements. R squared is x squared plus y squared, and r cosine theta is x. And now your equation is in rectangular form with just x's and y's. Okay, so let's go back. The point of this was, how do you change r to r squared? One way is to multiply it by r. Let's look at it another way. R equals 4. One way to fix this r and make it an r squared would be to multiply both sides by r, right? But what you end up with is r squared equals 4r, and you've caused another problem now because you've got r again. So you originally had an r and you fixed it, now you've got another r, so that didn't do any good. So in this case you would not want to multiply both sides by r. There's another way to change r to r squared. And the second way is to square both sides. If you do that, you get r squared equals 16, and now you've got an r squared that's easy to fix and change it to x squared plus y squared. So that's another way to change r to r squared. Here's an interesting example that requires us to first use a double angle formula on the right side to change this to 2 sine theta cosine theta. And then I would like the cosine of theta to be r cosine of theta, and I would like the sine of theta to be r sine of theta. Okay, so we're going to try to fix that up. So what if I multiply both sides by r times r? Okay, the left side would be r squared times r squared. Or in other words, r squared times itself, so r squared squared. Notice I'm not rewriting it as r to the fourth because our conversion up here requires an r squared. The right side then I could write as 2 times r sine of theta, so one of the r's could go next to the sine and the other r could go next to the cosine. So I've got x squared plus y squared, quantity squared, equals 2 times y times x. And there we go. In this last example I need to change this r to r squared, so I can square both sides or multiply both sides by r. I'm going to multiply both sides by r because by doing that, now at least I've got r cosine of theta here. So r squared and r cosine of theta are good. What I'll do is I'll put both of those on the same side now to isolate them from the part I need to fix now, which is just the r on the other side. So now I need to fix this r, excuse me, fix this r without messing up the others. So I could multiply both sides by r, but that would mess these up. So I will square both sides instead. And now everything's good, I just make the replacements. Notice I left the left side being squared.